it's three pillars. So it's what you're good at, what can make you money, and how you can help the world. And it's whatever is at the intersection of those three.
The water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We're talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.
Makenzie, welcome to Founder Secrets.
Thanks for having me today. Good to see you guys.
We're actually in the same co-working space, like in different rooms, just down the hall. Although the lighting is so much different in ours from each other.
I think yours is turned towards like the back, and then mine is turned up. So just different angles.
So awesome. You know, Mackenzie's one of those people, once you meet, you can't like unmeet. She's just like makes a really deep impression on at least me and other people in the office. And so really super impressed by her background. She's a Division I golfer. She's a person that's helping the world, and we'll talk about that, and also an entrepreneur. So let's start there. How did you make the jump into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so it was never really something that I thought about growing up. I studied finance in college and never in a million years even thought about kind of starting my own business or my own company. But it very much just kind of happened organically after a few life events lined up. I started my career in investment banking in New York and moved to New York for that. And even before I started investment banking, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2018. And that came back last year, early March, as stage 4. And she came to New York to do her treatment. And so I was lucky to kind of get to go to all her oncology appointments, all her clinical trial appointments, and really just witnessing firsthand almost made me realize kind of the preciousness of time. And even though I may be a little bit on the younger side, it kind of completely changed my outlook on my career, on my life, on what I wanted to do in the world. And I was already kind of on this journey of self-exploration, trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. And I already wasn't feeling very fulfilled in my job and knew I wanted some sort of change, but I never thought that change would be kind of going into entrepreneurship. And once I started to really look at what do I like to do in the world, what are my passions, I ended up just kind of taking a giant leap of faith and quit without really knowing what was going to happen. And I had a lot of support, and I kind of owe my whole entrepreneurial journey to my sister, who had a lot of faith in me and kind of told me that I could start my own thing. And that was kind of how that ended up happening.
What do you mean, like what passions, or what did you discover that you were passionate about that you didn't know before?
Yeah, so I think my passions, and I kind of connect all three of my passions into my, I would say like three main hobbies, businesses, activities. So one is connecting communities together. And so one of the startups that I'm a co-founder of, WID, is a social media app where you connect with your closest friends, and then you bring those friends to support local businesses. And through that was kind of the idea very much that I wanted to find a way to support local economies, whether that be in New York, or I'm from Indiana, where I grew up with a lot of my friends. And also my dad had his own small business and really just wanted to find a way to support small businesses. So that's kind of one pillar. Another pillar is obviously kind of going through the cancer journey. That was something I firsthand saw a lot of the struggles, especially around the mental health of the cancer patient and caregiver. That was something that I wanted to help with. And so have more recently kind of been working on a new health platform called Tien to provide resources to those affected by cancer to feel supported. And then finally, I sit on the board of Madison Square Park Sustainability Committee. I care a lot about the environment. And that's one pillar also that is just a way to kind of give back in the areas that I'm passionate about.
Wow. And so then you picked one of those three to start a company in, or how did it come? How did WID, which is WYD?
WYD. Yes.
Correct?
Yeah. So
it's an app.
Yeah. getwid.app. And so my co-founder actually, it had started about 3 years ago. And so I'm actually the second co-founder to have come in. I came in a little bit later when the first co-founder, he decided to quit and start his own thing. And that kind of just came through very, very serendipitous conversations. I had known him for a little bit of time. We both spent time in investment banking. We both grew up in Indiana. We had known each other for a while, and he knew that I cared a lot about kind of communities, building communities, figuring out how to bring people together, and essentially came to me one day and asked if I wanted to come help him co-found this company. And it's kind of one of those things that you can't really say no to. And that was also in my journey of I had quit and didn't know what was going to happen. And it just seemed like things were lining up when I didn't plan them to.
Wait, so I tried WID for a little bit. Maybe I'm confused because I didn't realize it was to support a community. Can you maybe help me understand, how does this group of friends support the local?
Yeah, so that's actually what is our newest feature that's being built in. So that is why you didn't understand that. So our core beta is just the social media platform. We have a partnership with Ticketmaster, and we're planning to launch that feature being built in about January. And so local businesses can pay us through Ticketmaster. So if they're hosting a small event on Ticketmaster, their event will be hosted on WID versus on Ticketmaster. And then people can say, I'm going to this event through WID. Their closest friends will see that they're going to this event, and together you can go support a local business.
Interesting. So more like a non-profit, like charitable event, or you're thinking like a sports event or any event?
So it's like a local coffee shop. So businesses pay us $9.99 a month to be on our platform, and they can host, let's say I want to have a 30% off discount on kind of my coffee shop sales for people that come through WID, and just slow events like that. But we actually established the partnership with Ticketmaster 2 years ago. And that was when they were really trying to get a little bit more into the small business community, and together with them have really kind of shaped our, I guess, way that we want to go and take this and figure out how we can use this partnership to best support communities.
How do you grow a platform like WID? Because it's almost a two-sided marketplace, right? You need the small businesses, the coffee shops, and you need people to go to events and go to coffee shops and things. Like, how do you grow both of those at the same time? It's so hard to do.
Yeah. So right now, we actually just fully launched on the App Store probably 3 months ago. And so kind of the beginning stages have been getting the core users on the platform to just kind of use it as a social media app and prove that they just enjoy also using the social media app features. And I think this morning I saw the report, we have 2,000 people onboarded to date today. And so it's, one is building out just the user platform, because obviously there's the supply, the demand side, and getting the users can help us convince businesses that they want to then onboard onto our platform. But it does help, and we are kind of leveraging this Ticketmaster name a lot when we're talking to businesses, and we have a small kind of list that are going to be onboarded as we get that feature added in to really connect and prove that, okay, we have this many people on the platform. If you're able to onboard your business, then we can guess that this many people will then actually drive your revenue sales by X amount when you actually host an event with us.
That's great. Marketplaces, I guess I've heard and I've seen, are a little hard, and also I guess take some time to generate revenue. So I'm thinking, especially with your background in finance, how do you think through bootstrap? Sounds like maybe there have been some years of bootstrapping, but then funding, VC funding. Yeah, how do you think through that? Maybe for this business and just in general as well for other businesses.
Yeah, so WID is venture-backed. So we are a VC-backed company. The bootstrapping versus VC is actually a conversation I probably have like 2 to 3 times a week, because I always go back and forth. And I think it really just comes down to what you're trying to get out of the business. Obviously, I always say, if I could do anything over or start something new, I would bootstrap for as long as possible, and then really find the strategic investors that believe in the mission and want to help with the go-to-market strategy. I think obviously with venture, you can scale a lot faster, but then investors have equity and they kind of want to drive the direction or drive the focus of the company. And sometimes you can go off track when you're trying to scale a little bit too fast. And so I'm always a proponent of bootstrapping if you're able to, but there's obviously value in being able to scale with those venture connections and money.
I've bootstrapped, and then I've really wanted to like have a VC backed company. And so then I did that, and now I really want a bootstrap company again. So it's like it feels like like the grass is always greener on the other side in a way. But also the type of business, right? Like I just feel like, can you even bootstrap a marketplace like this? Like was possible without funding?
No, it definitely, with a marketplace, it's probably not as possible. So I think, you also have to look at kind of what is the business and when are you going to start to get those revenue dollars in. And obviously a marketplace is a little bit harder. So the VC was kind of the most feasible way going forward.
So you were a Division I golfer. How did that help in business?
Yeah, I think it has shaped everything, honestly. They always say that golf is a sport played between your ears. So meaning it's a completely mental game. And especially at the Division I level, the main thing you kind of focus on is actually mental training. So you have a mental coach. You learn a pre-shot routine. You learn how to recover from bad shots. You play 36 hole rounds. And so you have to be able to kind of keep going for those 10-hour days, even if you're having a bad day. And anyone in my life knows that my morning routine is the most important part of my day. And I think that was very much taken from kind of my pre-shot routine in golf and has carried very much through, okay, how do I set my day up and how do I recover from bad days? And I think that was all taught to me through golf.
Right. So what is your morning routine and what was your pre-shot routine?
My pre-shot routine, I took 2 practice shots. I would pick up grass and then like let the wind tell me what direction it was going. I don't know if it actually helped or not, but it looked cool. And then I had like a few alignment things. And then my morning routine, I actually got from a book called 5 a.m. Club by, I think his name's Robin Sharma. But you wake up, you read for 20 minutes, meditate for 20 minutes, work out for 20 minutes. And then if you have extra time, you can kind of expand those barriers. But I always try and start my morning. I'll read a little bit, meditate, journal, go on a walk, get my morning sunlight, as Andrew Huberman always talks about, and really just set my day up to kind of be best positioned to take on my day.
And you do that every day?
I do. On the days I don't do it, I'm not a nice person.
Wait, so I mean, you can't just like jump out of bed and you start reading a book? Like, how does that work?
I roll over and I have a book on my bedside table, and I will like turn on the light and usually still be laying down, but I try to not get out of my bed until I have at least 10 pages read, which some days take a lot longer than other days.
What are you reading right now?
Joe Dispenza's book. It's called How to Become Supernatural, I think.
This is a good segue into longevity, which we also share our passion on. So what got you into longevity? Because oftentimes what get people into longevity is like they're getting like older and slower, like me and people ahead of me. And so they're like, oh, I want to capture my youth. But I feel like you're already at that peak potential like youth. And so like you don't see as many people that are young and like crushing it be into longevity. So I'm wondering what got you into it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it came with my mom's cancer diagnosis. She is probably the healthiest person that I've ever met. So she was an immigrant from China. She grew up on a farm. Growing up, eating fresh food was kind of instilled in our value systems. And she was someone who never drank, never smoked, never did anything, like actually one of the healthiest people ever. And so when she got cancer, everyone was so surprised, because essentially if someone that healthy can get cancer, then what are the other things that can affect your body? And that essentially just took me down a rabbit hole of kind of trying to figure out what are the other things that can affect our health. The mind, gut, emotional, all of these things are very much tied to each other. And spent a lot of time first learning about it to see how I could help her diagnosis. And then I just became so fascinated in the topic and couldn't stop learning about it. And I know, Flavio, me and you talked about our continuous glucose monitors that we use, and that's kind of how we became friends. And it's just been very much something that started to help her. And then I just found that I really enjoyed learning about it.
Wait, what do you mean helped? I guess what did you learn through this journey that you took away and were able to help her?
Yeah, so it's a lot of almost experiments running, and I don't like to use the word experiments in terms of a cancer diagnosis, but we very much started to try out, okay, what are all of the different maybe supplements? So for a common one with longevity is NAD. And so if we did a trial run where the only thing we changed in her diet was adding NAD, did she feel a little bit better? Did she feel a little bit worse? We did that with keto diet. We did that with her blood sugar levels. We essentially tried all of these mini trials on her that a lot of longevity researchers would claim kind of helped. And so working with her on that, and then also just on the emotional side, seeing how your emotions can really affect your body. I think that was the biggest part that a lot of people talk about in longevity. And the one part that is missing a lot of the time when people talk about your food, you can eat, obviously that affects your health, but looking at the emotional connection to an illness is one of the biggest parts that I took away from longevity and has kind of shaped my life in the past year.
Well, so can you be a little more specific? What exact which one of those things worked? I guess what exact actions, whether on emotional or on those other things, actually you saw help? Outside
of her cancer diagnosis, I would say, especially kind of for me and my family, just the mind-body connection with a lot of yoga, meditation practices, learning how to slowly calm down your nervous systems, not be in fight or flight as much, and just calm down your bodies. Obviously, if we're always in a state of stress, then you can stress out your body even more, and that can cause longer issues in your life. And making sure that you're staying calm and present is one of the biggest things that is sometimes considered, I guess, woo-woo when people talk about longevity, but very much a large factor in how long you can live.
What did you find actually worked in all the experiments you did with her?
The keto diet actually was the best. And so that is something that she still does today. We actually kept, for when she was going through her clinical trial at Sloan Kettering, we kept a log of every single food she ate for 60 days and almost turned that into a little diary that we shared with all of her doctors. And so making it to year 5 of pancreatic cancer is very, very rare. So she's patient 0 in a lot of cases. And when we are working with her doctors, we kind of do little experiments and with them, since it is very much, we have to track what has worked with her to help maybe other people down the line. And grapeseed extract was something that she continues to take today because thought it helped her health a lot. A lot of these things are going to be different for every body, obviously, but there are some herbs and supplements that she continues to take today that we found helped.
By the way, kudos to your mom for being open to all these experiments. Like my dad, after he had a stroke, I tried to I couldn't even get him to do a 23andMe spit in a tube test. So kudos to your mom being so open and you obviously helping her. But before we turn this into a longevity podcast, which I would love to, I think Taylor's like, Taylor, you go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was curious. So you were talking about the mental coach, and I feel that people talk a lot about how entrepreneurship or how sports, so these things are a mental game, but they don't actually talk about what specifically they are. And you were kind of hitting on those things. In your experience, is it the systems and the routines that, like you were saying, it's the swinging, 2 swings before? Is it those things that help? Is it the quiet, or what have you seen that really made, what specifically part of those kind of mental models really made it work?
Yeah, I think especially for me, both in golf and when I'm thinking about my entrepreneurial journey, it's really the routine that is able to put me back into the moment of a good day, a good conversation, a good shot when it comes to golf. And having that either pre-shot routine, morning routine, the habits, there are certain habits I do before I'm going on an investor call. I think golf has very much primed me to have these pre-routines that I don't know if other people do these honestly, but I think that they have helped for me to get into a mindset to know that that is what worked for me before, allows me to almost tap into this different mindset where I can expect a good future. And it's almost tricking my brain into, okay, if I do this, then that will happen. And so making sure I do the initial steps are something that is crucial for me. And if it doesn't work, I try and forget about those conversations or the bad shot and only remember the good ones that happened after the routine. And that's really helped shape it a lot.
Do you think anyone could do this? Like, do you think anyone can follow these routines, or is it something about you or athletes, or is it something you have to do for years before it really works? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think anyone can definitely do it. I think it comes down to, with kind of these routines, there has to almost be a level of tricking your brain, because you're not going to want to wake up every single day. You're not going to want to play every hole of golf all the time, but it's what is the routine and what is the consistency, and it's almost a comfort level on some point, because obviously humans are creatures of habits. We want to be coming back to the same thing every single day. And in the entrepreneurial journey, there are so many things that are just left to the unknown. And I found that the routine was comforting and kept me a little bit grounded. And what is a routine for me may look completely different for someone else. I think that level can be interchangeable, but I think there needs to be a level of consistency and comfort in a level of support in everyone's journey.
One other question about that. Was there anything shocking when you first, were exposed to these mental coaches and things? Was there any part of that was really shocking? Not necessarily you still use today, but that you were really surprised that really worked? Yeah,
well, I got a mental coach when I started playing golf in high school. And so it was almost a time before even therapy was mainstream, or people started talking about mental health and the topics that are brought into a lot more of conversations after COVID, which are obviously great that it's coming into the limelight. But back then, a mental coach, I never thought about it as mental training or mental resilience, but there was a lot of philosophy or ways of thinking or ways of priming the brain that I didn't even realize were happening on a subconscious level. And now looking back, I can pinpoint, there was that conversation that helped me now. But back then that wasn't even really a thing, and just kind of started to be programmed into my mind before I even realized it.
Is there anything specific? I'm just curious if there's anything that normal people can use, that could work.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is staying present. And I know a lot of people say that in a lot of different ways nowadays, but whether that be golf, whether that be a journey or entrepreneurial journey or a normal job, I think our minds always try to go to the future or the past and look at, okay, what's on the rest of my to-do list today? What are things that I know that's going to happen? And when you start to tell yourself those stories, I've noticed is when you kind of start to repeat a lot of the same patterns. And by not thinking in the past or the future and thinking only in the present is when I found to have the best shots, the best conversations, the best decision-making skills. And it's a lot easier said than done, but trying to not project what you think is going to come from a situation has really helped.
It's a great transition to the yoga TN. How do you spell TN?
TIAN.
TIAN. And just talk about how you got into yoga and how you turned that into a work that's nonprofit.
Yeah, so I have been practicing yoga for about 10 years. And when my mom was diagnosed, I really leaned into my yoga practices, my meditation practices to even just get out of bed some mornings. And especially when she was going through her treatment in New York, I saw the lack of resources around mental health for patients, for caregivers, especially when a patient is going through chemo and they have lower mobility. They're not able to even move from bed. So then obviously they can't benefit from a yoga practice. And I very much wanted to find a solution to this problem, and did my yoga teacher training last year through Ithaca Yoga Farm and got a certification through Memorial Sloan Kettering to be able to learn how to teach to cancer patients. And I volunteer there and through an organization called Red Door Community in the West Village. I teach every Tuesday, and the classes are free if anyone's affected by cancer. And it was very much just, I saw how much yoga helped me during that time, and I wanted to find a way to put it on an on-demand platform where people could practice that anytime they wanted, to be able to get these mind-body benefits that come with a lot of the yoga practices.
What is Tien's mission? Or how do you
Yeah. So Tien's mission is to help anyone affected by cancer feel supported and empowered. So whether that be through meditation, breath work, yoga, Tai Chi, we have probably about 15 people creating content that is all in the works. And the plan is a Q2 launch of 2024. So this is all very much in the works, and you're kind of talking at the beginning stages, but there's a lot of people who are willing to help out on that front. A lot of people that I know through my yoga teaching, through my volunteer work, that we're all coming together to create this on-demand platform for anyone at any stage of cancer to be able to access these resources from their home. And yeah, that's just to help them feel like they can keep fighting cancer every day.
Well, how to understand, how is the practice different for cancer patients than other patients or just people that aren't sick? How do you customize it?
Yeah, actually, every single type of cancer has a different flow that's recommended. And there's 2 levels to that. So one is, if you have a tumor in a specific area, you don't want to do a pose that is going to be putting pressure on that or stretching that area. So for breast cancer, you don't ever want to lift your arms above your head. If you have a tumor in the pancreas, liver, kidney, you don't want to do any poses that are laying on your stomach. And there are also certain poses that help to counteract a lot of the toxins in certain areas. So twists help a lot with liver, and starting to incorporate all of these into flows rather than a patient just going to a normal yoga class and making modifications on their own, making them really feel like there are these practices that are offered specifically to them. And right now they're only really offered if you go into a hospital setting and kind of work with one of the integrative oncologist yoga instructors, or go to a Zoom class. For example, the one I teach through Red Door, there are these options available, but they're very much timed and not on an on-demand way. So it's really trying to find a way for them to access it at any point.
Brilliant. You seem really passionate about this. And you like light up when, for those that aren't on video, light up when you talk about this versus when you talk about investment banking. Although we didn't really talk about that as much. But how do you, separate, or how does like your for-profit, not-profit work? How do you reconcile, I guess, those two in terms of mind space and time and passion that you put?
So there is not a lot of downtime I feel like I have right now. I feel like I have a very, very good support system, though, that know me better almost than I know myself, and can let me know if I'm starting to spread myself a little bit too thin. And I know that a lot of people in my life sometimes will tell me to take a break. And even if I yell at them and say, no, I'm too busy, I can't, they'll almost force me to take a break. And then on the other end, I'm like, oh, wow, I really needed that. Otherwise, I was just going to be completely burned out. So I think balancing it all is very much I owe to the people in my life. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. And almost even just in my head, everything goes to the North Star of helping people around me. You take away the for-profit, the non-for-profit, both of them have a goal of helping the communities that I'm a part of. And having that connection in my brain allows me to almost switch back and forth depending on my day, my week, whatever is being asked for me at that moment. But they all have the common thread of, how can I give back?
But then you have your hobbies too. Like, do you still play golf and do the same thing?
Occasionally. In the summer, I play golf. Not as much anymore, but I think my hobbies also go into my work. So when I teach yoga, for example, I love teaching yoga. I would consider that to be a hobby. And I've just been very lucky to also then create that into something I want to work on. I try and align my hobbies with my work so things can slowly start to interconnect with each other.
And you feel, this is like a belief I have more and more, is that like for-profit at scale starts to potentially compromise values. And I hear a lot, about Facebook and Google and these kind of companies, but I'm also starting to hear more in startups and seeing it myself, like with the times changing, there's pressures for margin. So the first thing to go is whatever lofty values we had. Now we got to focus on making EBITDA work and making a profit. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like for-profit can compromise your values, or is that not something you worry about?
So I think that's a complicated question. There's obviously a lot of nuances that come with answering that. I've never been at the larger scale, so I can only really speak to the early scale side of for-profit versus not-for-profit. I think it's a lot harder to grow with a value system in the for-profit angle. And I think being able to grow a for-profit while continuing a certain mission or values is really all about the people. And especially in the earlier stages, making sure every single early hire is so aligned with the mission and aligned on the non-negotiables for a company, and making sure that goes into any decision they make.
What advice do you have for someone who is in investment banking right now, or they're in something else that they're maybe not necessarily that they don't feel engaged in, and they want to move into entrepreneurship, or they want to move into something more mission driven, like you're doing? What advice do you have for someone in that spot right now?
Yeah, I think it's cliche, but find a problem that you want to work on every single day. At the end of the day, especially whether it be an entrepreneur, whether it be a different company, there are going to be days that you don't believe in yourself. You don't want to wake up and do your job. But at the end of the day, I believe more in what I'm creating and my mission sometimes than I do in myself. And on days that I doubt myself, that is what guides me and gets me to kind of keep working, and really just believing in the problem and believing that you're creating a solution, or you're part of creating a solution that can fix that problem.
How does someone, how did, you had this cancer diagnosis with your mom that kind of seems like it's a single thread in between all these things.
Yeah.
I'm glad she's doing better. What if someone doesn't have that? Like, do you have any thoughts on how they can find what's passionate, what they have passion about?
Yeah, I think there's the self-exploration journey that a lot of people start to go on when they maybe think there's something more out there, or they want to feel maybe a little bit more fulfilled. Not to say that they're not already, but I think it's really finding what you're good at. There's the Japanese principle of ikigai, and it's what you're good at, What's
ikigai? What is that?
It's 3 pillars. So it's what you're good at, what can make you money, and how you can help the world. And it's whatever is at the intersection of those 3. The Japanese philosophy is what will allow you to live the happiest life. And it's really finding what are things that make you light up when you talk about them. What would you do and spend your free time on? Maybe you like surfing, maybe you like crocheting or knitting, and figuring out how you can incorporate that slowly and just run mini experiments here and there to see, is this something I could do? Is this something that is sparking my interest in? Maybe not going full scale and quitting a job into going into the unknown, but even just testing these little experiments and figuring out what sticks and what doesn't.
Definitely this podcast, although it's not making any money. So that's not
it's our passion.
It is our passion. Well, look, it's just amazing how much ground we've covered. I feel like you are so sharp and give such succinct, clear answers that we've covered double the amount of ground we might usually. And so we thank you for being present, for sharing with the world your wisdom so far. So
of course, thanks for having me on. And yeah, you guys are doing a great job with this podcast. I love listening, and I'm glad that I get to be a part of it.
And where can people find you? Thank you. And also, where can people find you, and any Any kind of final asks of the audience or any asks of the audience?
Yeah, so Get Wid, you can download on the App Store, WYD, Your People, Your Place. Tien, we are doing everything on the back end, but you can join our launch list at tienfield.com and stay up to date on announcements as we develop over the next quarter.
Boom.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time, hold it down, hold it down. Hey.